fans, we are eating good this year, and possibly next year. I mean, what better time for it? It's October, Halloween is upon the horizon, so it seems the timing was just perfect to announce all of this crazy stuff, and for the first time in years, we are finally getting some new Silent Hill news, which is very shocking because as far as we were all concerned, Konami was done. They had pretty much gotten out of the video game market. They had been all moving all in on the pachinko machine route, and their video games division was pretty much done. However, knowing that they did own all of these different IPs, it was very logical to believe at some point, one way or another, that they would start outsourcing these games and licenses to other developers so that they could at least keep them alive and Konami could make bank off of them without having to put forth any effort on their own part in order to just, keep it going. So, out of the blue, we got a whole bunch of new Silent Hill projects going on. We got Resident Evil news, which I'm probably going to cover in a different video because that really deserves attention all on its own with Resident Evil 4 news. But yeah, Silent Hill, wow. I grew up a pretty big-ish Silent Hill fan. I'm not going to say I was a die-hard Silent Hill fan. It wasn't until years after the series had really taken its roots down that I would slowly start to turn my head towards Silent Hill and be like, what's that about? That looks scary. And then I had a friend in high school tell me about it, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like probably the scariest video game series out there. And I'm like, really? I thought Resident Evil had that covered. But boy, was I wrong. Silent Hill, miles ahead, leagues ahead of the kind of fear that Resident Evil puts out there. But the point is, it's back. We thought the series was done. The games that they had been making for the past few years, from Silent Hill Book of Memories, Downpour, Homecoming, Origins, none of them felt like they were hitting the mark where they needed to, either because the developers at the time who had replaced Team Silent really didn't understand the content or the lore. I mean, you've all probably watched Twin Perfect's retrospective series on the entire Silent Hill series, and it can't be denied just how different the directions went when Team Silent was officially disbanded. But now here we are, it's 2022, and we are starting things off with getting a Silent Hill 2 remake, which, it makes sense. Silent Hill 2 is unquestionably the most popular game in the series for probably the introduction of classic character Pyramid Head. And here it is, getting remade. They tried it before. Well, they tried remastering it with the HD collection, which was a complete disaster. But yeah, from what we saw in the footage, the little bit of footage that we saw for Silent Hill 2 remake. Sorry, Resident Evil's been getting all the remakes. It's just very surreal to see Silent Hill is finally getting the same and well-deserved treatment. Silent Hill 2 remake. We didn't see a lot. We didn't see too much of the gameplay. However, there are some Twitter clips out there showing what the gameplay is kind of going to look like, and it's very modern, which unquestionably they would have to modernize it a bit for the new generation of players because people really don't want to go back to the traditional style of tank controls, which I myself had no problem with. A lot of the games back in the day, especially in the PS1 era, largely used tank controls because it was just the most convenient and reliable way to do things at the time. It worked. The games were structured around the tank controls, and if you got used to them, they fundamentally worked fine. And I grew up with them, and I can function with tank controls no problem in any game that was thrown at me. Dino Crisis, Parasite Eve, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Mega Man Legends. So many franchises at the time were utilizing tank controls, and they worked. If you didn't get used to them, you didn't play, and we wanted to play, so we got used to them. So here we are now in a new age where tank controls are no longer a thing, and fear in video games has grown a bit and changed a bit, because the old formulaic ways of trying to get people to be scared in video games has also changed. And Silent Hill, even over the past few years, a handful of years with the new developers, was showing that it was struggling in that market of trying to actually get people scared. And their methods of doing it were doing things like, oh, now our weapons can break all the time, so we can't rely on any one weapon to get us through, which turned out to not be as scary as much as it was annoying. So, how are they going to do it? and I'm left with a lot of questions when it comes to Silent Hill 2 Remake, but one thing I am really happy to see is they do have Akira Yamaoka, the musical composer, back doing the music, which I don't know if he's going to create entirely new pieces for the soundtrack or if he's going to use largely what he had already created in Silent Hill 2 or in the previous games, because they worked fine. You could easily adapt his old soundtracks to the new ones, and he doesn't really have to try that hard, but it is cool to see him back in the composer seat. So the feel will at least be the same in terms of music. But also, probably more importantly, we got Masahiro Ito back in some form or another, overseeing the project, either as a designer or director. I'm not entirely sure what his position is, but the fact that he is involved, and he is probably one of the most reliable and people when it comes to understanding the true lore and nature of how Silent Hill is supposed to be, does leave me with hope that Silent Hill 2 Remake will probably be the best game since Silent Hill 4, which even that one is questionable, but it was the last true Team Silent game, so I guess you could feasibly say Silent Hill 4 was the last good one before things really took a turn for the worst. So, I mean, that is exciting. I am excited to see Silent Hill 2 is getting remade proper by people who were also part of the original, but also new people that have experience when it comes to creating different types of horror. And we've seen with the developers who created Layers of Fear, which if you've played that, Layers of Fear is a different beast. I haven't played it myself, but I have seen all the footage that you need to see about it. It's more of it's like those haunted house Halloween Horror Nights if you've gone to Universal Studios, where it's more like a ride. You're just kind of walking through the experience and just seeing all the visuals. There's not much of a game to it, but it is an experience where you're like visually creative. These guys are masters at making sure that what you're looking at is always interesting, unique, and very weird. And in a weird way that also does make sense for Silent Hill, because you can guarantee you're going to see some interesting creative visuals. And yeah, I can say that these guys were probably the right people to go to, along with Masahiro Ito being there, directing them on how it's supposed to feel and how it's supposed to look, and this is what Silent Hill does. This is how the monsters look, this is the nature of the monsters, and how they're supposed to change depending on the person that they're interacting with. So I feel like we are in good hands. When I saw the trailer, I'm like, there's hope! So yeah, looking forward to it. I'm sure people are going to be somewhat mixed because Silent Hill 2, it's the best game ever made, so why remake it? Why? You can't improve upon perfection, you can only mess it up. So we will see. I am cautiously optimistic. I've been burned many times before when it comes to things like this, but I'm remaining hopeful. So all I can say when it comes to the Silent Hill 2 remake is we'll see, but my hopes are high because it feels like the right people are involved for this one. And then we moved on to some more Silent Hill news, which, if you like merchandise, holy hell, Silent Hill fans about to be broke, which is what I said on Twitter, because my god, we're getting statues, we are getting more statues, and I'm not even a big statue collector. I have a handful of them myself, and all they do is sit on my shelf and collect dust. But even I'm looking at some of these things like, damn, where can I buy it? It is pretty cool to see Silent Hill getting some merch representation. I am really excited to see that, and it's well deserved. My one question about it all is what took them so long? But here it is. So if you want your Silent Hill merch, if you want your Silent Hill skateboards, which for some reason, you know what? I'm going to say, why not? There's no reason not to have it. The more merch, the better. If you want your Silent Hill skateboards, if you want to ruin them by rail grinding off of side posts or anything, hey, more power to you. You got options. They're there. So if you're gunning for Silent Hill merchandise, if you're gunning for James Sunderland statues, if you're gunning for Maria, Pyramid Head, and the dog statues, they got you covered by the truckloads. Like you're golden. You're good. And even more Silent Hill news coming. We got something called Silent Hill Ascension, which feels very Twitch plays, if you guys are unfamiliar with that, where it's like everybody's watching a video on Twitch, and depending on what you put in the chat can affect the outcome of what you're looking at. which is pretty cool and has been proven to work in some cases where you got things like Twitch plays Pokemon or Twitch plays something or other. I haven't been a part of any of those myself, but I have heard about how they work, and it is a unique idea, and trying to implement a Silent Hill project around that on paper sounds like a good idea, but I can't... I would really have to see what they want to do with it, because they didn't really show anything for Silent Hill Ascension. They just kind of give you like a little bit of a teaser of like people freaking out on a text chat, and then you got the developers going into what they want to do for this type of game, which again, on paper and in theory, it looks pretty cool and it could work, but you're also relying on the internet to play well with each other, and we know that that's generally not what happens most of the time. You're going to have a lot of jackasses in the chat trying to ruin it for everybody, so unless there's a controlled way you can mitigate how many people are involved in this and what's going on, it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see how Silent Hill Ascension comes about. I can't really give pros or cons when it comes to this. I mean, I just know how the internet works, and I've seen the idea that they're coming up with in practice. It can work. So again, we'll see. And even more Silent Hill news, we have a new Silent Hill movie coming out, which appears to be featured more on Silent Hill 2, which, the best game ever made, why not? But my biggest concern about the new Silent Hill movie is that it's being helmed once again by Christoph Gans, who was the original person behind the first Silent Hill movie. A movie I did not wholeheartedly like. I appreciated the talent behind it in terms of visual artistry and making the monsters, and the feel looks somewhat Silent Hill-ish. They even went down to using the music from the games, which only added to the feel, but sadly, I think Twin Perfect did kind of jade my opinion on it a bit, even though my opinions of the movie were already not high to begin with. But one thing Twin Perfect did is that they did go a little bit more behind the scenes on why the movie ended up the way it did, and why, instead of retelling the original game exactly as it should have been, they instead recasted the role of Harry Mason as a woman, Rose, which... even back then, I was confused why we were following a character named Rose going through a very somewhat similar story that Harry Mason goes through instead of, Harry Mason. Reality-wise, it does sound like there was a lot of sexism involved against men in this one, where Christoph Gans wanted females to completely dominate the film, and out of his own mouth, in his own documentary or words, he saw Harry Mason as more of a female type in going after the daughter, because apparently in his mind, fathers are incapable of doing this for their children, which, yeah, it did not sound good. Now, I understand we are not the same people we were 15, 20 years ago, and it has been quite some time, so maybe he's wised up, unless all of a sudden we see in another interview that when he goes through the story of Silent Hill 2, he's just like, a protagonist that is trying to face their inner demons in order to save their loved one. Oh, it's a woman. We have to recast James as a woman. It makes perfect sense. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, here we go again. That's my biggest fear. I don't think that's going to happen, but that did bother me when he was in charge of making the first one. And so yeah, again, you might want to do your homework on this one and see what you think. All I know is Silent Hill, when it comes to movies, does not have a really good track record. Silent Hill in general hasn't had a really good track record in a long time, so... I mean, the man knows what he's doing when it comes to visual, creative artistry and making it feel Silent Hill-ish, but when it comes to his personal choices in directing the movies, questionable. But we'll see. We got another teaser trailer for a new upcoming Silent Hill game called Silent Hill Townfall. I couldn't make heads or tails of what that's supposed to mean or what we're supposed to think of it. Because again, just a teaser. No gameplay, no real story. Just Silent Hill Townfall. That's all you need to know. It's in development. Arguably, I think by the same people who are working on Silent Hill 2 Remake. The only thing you got is that it's coming. Then I think the last bit of Silent Hill news was Silent Hill F, which when they first started showing the trailer for it, y'all know it looked very Fatal Frame. You got a Japanese setting, and the whole thing reeked of Fatal Frame, and I was just sitting there like, wow, like, did they sneak an ad for a new Fatal Frame into this, and there's a premiere that they're doing here? But no, they're working on a new project called Silent Hill F, and already I'm a little... I don't know what to think about it, because knowing the lore of Silent Hill as well as I do now, the cult and the curse really should be isolated to just that town, and it can't really go beyond the borders of the town of Silent Hill. That's where it's kind of locked in. So to suddenly see a Japanese territory, maybe even an old-timey one that didn't look very modern, suddenly getting weirdly corrupted by flowers and odd shapes. I'm not saying it won't be a good game, but it definitely is not following the lore that we know of Silent Hill, unless they are just completely doing a reimagining from the ground up, which, as we clearly know by now, Konami is just handing out the license to anybody who will have it and make something of it. So I can't entirely blame them for this one, but somebody had an idea and thought Japan, old school Japan, and flowers and monsters. So not really sure what to make of this. I definitely would have not gotten any Silent Hill feels from this. If it literally was not called Silent Hill F, I never would have imagined Silent Hill having a name attached to this. It just doesn't look like Silent Hill. It doesn't feel like Silent Hill. Not saying it won't be good, not condemning the project as a whole right off the bat. I just don't get it. And I'm eager to find out what they're doing with it. It could be a completely new thing. It could be a reimagining as something simple, or they could probably find a way to expand upon the lore and in one way or another have the cult's work now take place in Japan. Who knows? So that being said, we got a lot of Silent Hill love. I am glad to see the series is starting to make a comeback. I really hope they don't they don't drop the ball and fudge it. Granted, it's a handful of different people involved in all of these individual projects. So some may be good, some may be bad. All of them may be bad. All of them might be wonderful. I can only hope for the latter. So I'm now leaving the floor up to you guys, my friends, my followers. What do you guys think? What are you looking forward to? Are you fans of Silent Hill? Have you ever played any of these games before? Are you looking forward to it? I really want to see you guys engage. I really want to see you guys talk about it, because I want to engage with you guys as well and come up and theorize about what the hell is going on in Silent Hill these days. Let me know in the comments below, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack. Meanwhile, guys, thank you so much for listening. I am cautiously excited and optimistic for the future of this franchise, and I really hope to see more as 2024, 2023 comes down. Yeah, 2023 or 2024. Either way, I'm very interested in seeing what's coming. I hope they don't rush it. I hope they do take their time with it. I really want this franchise to succeed. These Konami IPs from Metal Gear, Contra, Silent Hill, Castlevania, these franchises need to come back. They need a win. Where's Sparkster? Sparkster needs a new game. But yeah, so let me know, guys. What do you think? Meanwhile, you've been watching William Morris on the Brotherhood of Gaming. And until next time, stay classy.